Hey, my name is Joe,
And I'm Mary Beth.
and this is the best of Gen X.
We are in our 40s.
And we're siblings,
We'll talk about adulting in a world so different from the one we grew up in,
so excuse us while we save a generation.
one episode at a time.
Let's go.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Mary Beth.
How are you?
I'm swell. How are you?
A little tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had another...
Team no sleep?
Team no sleep again.
I got excellent sleep last night.
Good for you.
The sound of the chirping birds woke me up finally.
As it should be.
Yeah. No, I slept well.
Good.
What's going on with you? Just
Since
in general.
Since our last episode, Mal had a birthday, so she turned 20.
Mm-hmm.
And plans for our trip to Washington are coming along nicely.
They are. Let me start with Mallory.
Okay.
So on her birthday, I always try to make it a point, because you have to assume that our kids in general don't think about things ahead of time, right?
Right.
Not trying to call my kids stupid by any stretch, but I always worry that they're not ahead of things like wishing a family member happy birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So that morning at like 7:30-ish, I texted my children and I was like, "Don't forget it's Mallory's birthday. Let's make sure we wish her a happy birthday." And so I texted Mallory immediately after that and wished her happy birthday. And she was like, "Oh, thank you. Love you, Uncle Joe." And both my kids were like, "Dude, we already did that." And Navy was like, "I texted her at midnight." I was like, "Oh, so I just need to like let my kids just, grow."
They're on top of things.
Yeah, and just leave them alone because they were actually ahead of me. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, trip. Let's talk about the trip.
Yeah, so we have, we've got our flights booked. We have our hotels booked in Seattle and Port Angeles. And the only thing left that I think we have to book in advance is our whale tour.
Yeah.
Which we'll book after we record. I'm so excited.
So excited too. You said the cutest thing, by the way, in that text. We were talking about it, and I think I had just booked, or maybe you booked my part or whatever. We kind of like firmed up where we were staying, both pieces of the trip. Mm-hmm. And you go, "I'm so excited." You said, "I get to go to the place I've always wanted to go with my two favorite men."
Yeah.
I thought that was so cute.
My two favorite boys on the planet.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Husband and my brother.
Yeah, it was very sweet. I'm very, very excited, obviously.
Yeah, I think we'll have such a good time.
Even last year or so, outside of you and I even talking about it, I was telling people, I was like, man, really the only area of the country that I've never been that I've really wanted to go, because I've pretty much been to all kind of pockets of the country, is Pacific Northwest. And it's like,
yeah,
it just feels so amazing that we're finally just doing it.
I know, and I've been so filled with gratitude lately. Just being able to make these plans. Every time I book a reservation, I'm just like, thank you, God, for this opportunity. And
yeah, same.
And I don't know that I've ever planned a trip or looked forward to a trip just for the scenery alone.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot wait.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be beautiful.
To see.
It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
And I want all aspects of it. I want it to rain. I want it to be foggy. I want, the green, the trees, the big trees and stuff. Yeah, I kind of want it all.
Mossy.
The whales. But I'm actually really proud of us because it kind of all kickstarted with, the passport. Mm-hmm. I got mine in January. Then you and Josh were like motivated to get yours renewed. And then we had our friend Amanda on. It was just like snowballing. And we finally were just like, you know what? Life's too short, man.
Yeah.
And we just did it.
It's time to
we just did it. We just stopped
talking.
Yeah, we just stopped talking about it. I know we'll get there with the international stuff at some point, but I'm just proud that we just did it.
Yeah, this is a great first step, and I'm really pumped.
Yeah, because we're gonna be like little kids when we just go into the airport to leave. We're gonna be like little kids. It's gonna be so fun.
Just the fact that it feels more official now that we have these reservations.
I mean, we are booked.
We are booked, man.
We're getting emails about it. No, good
confirmation.
Yeah, and good choices on the places. I know you asked my opinion, but you picked some cool places.
Yeah, I thought it was easiest to just think about all the boxes that needed to be checked, and then I just sent you, for Seattle, here are 3 choices. I'm good with all of them. They have all the things that we need, and same for Port Angeles, and you came back with 2 great choices.
Yeah, it was all a vibe. I thought the places you picked, I think it's gonna be a cool vibe.
Yeah, we're staying in a historic hotel in downtown Seattle, and it's within walking distance of everything, and it's close to public transport to the airport. And I think we're going to save money on car rental because we'll be, close to everything we need to be close to or that we want to be close to. And then Port Angeles, we're going to rent a car then and take a ferry and spend a couple days just driving through Port Angeles and Forks and La Push. We're going to eat dinner at Bella's restaurant.
Maybe run into some quail utes.
Oh, that's another reservation. I need to make dinner reservations at Bella Italia.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I'm Avis preferred, so let me do the rental car.
Okay, fantastic.
I'll basically just walk up to the counter and they'll have my stuff ready. That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else?
I did want to mention, first of all, I forgot to tell you that before this episode even drops, we will surpass 2,500 downloads.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Man, that's great.
And finally, look, Josh has been off for a couple days, and I caught him in the living room watching Game of Thrones. And I was like, how dare you?
Diabolical.
Like, I'm not healed, man.
Right. How could you do that?
Trigger me, why don't you? And it's become a difficult show for me to revisit, but I still love it so much. It's like the one that got away. It's painful,
Yeah, I sometimes struggle going back to it, not because I didn't like it, because it was there's so much intensity around it.
Oh, it's so intense, and there's so many ups and downs and twists and turns. And anyway, it got me thinking, because ever since we started this podcast, I knew that one day I was going to need to get this out. I was going to have to put my feelings about Game of Thrones on the public record. So I just wanted to give a heads up to our listeners. If you've already seen it, this would be a great time for a brush up. We're giving you a 3-month, leadway here. There are 73 episodes. It takes anywhere from 70 to 75 hours of viewing time. So you can break that up however you want, but you're looking at about 12 weeks-ish. It'll be like mid-July or early July that we devote an entire episode to the series. And if you want to brush up, now's the time. If you have been waiting for an excuse to watch it and haven't, now's your chance. Or if you just don't care about spoilers and you just want to listen because we're awesome.
I think that's a great idea. And I would be tempted. I think I'm going to do this once we get those conversations on record and start talking through it. I wouldn't put it past myself to send a link of our podcast to the people that originated the series or wrote the series, because now listen, no pressure, Mary Beth, but I've said this for a long time that I feel like you are one of the best people at ingesting content,
yes,
whether it's show, movie, book, and being able to articulate your thoughts either on paper or verbally about something, because it's so thoughtful, it's so detailed. There's imagery that kind of puts you what you're explaining, like puts that person right in the place that you're explaining. And I almost feel like we wouldn't be doing you any justice if the writers didn't hear that from someone that's just not connected in any way other than just being a big fan.
Die hard.
So whether or not we would get a response from that, I would be half tempted to do that because I know it's going to be good.
Okay, well, I'll have to...
no pressure again, because I know you're going to feel it.
I'll have to, as Lady Macbeth said to her husband, screw up your courage. Screw your courage to the sticking place and we'll not fail. Because I do have strong opinions. And so if...
Oh, I'm well aware.
Powerful people involved in the process were to happen to hear it, I have to be okay with that.
Yep.
And you know what? I think I will be okay with it.
Yeah. What the seven hells?
Yeah.
Okay.
What in seven hells?
All right. Well, I'm glad that we're at least thinking about that. I think it's going to be gold. I think it's going to be podcast gold.
Yeah. So
speaking of Game of Thrones, I feel like you and I, you were the one that got me into it. You got me caught up into it. Mm-hmm. So you allowed me to binge until I think, what was it, season 7 or whatever, right before the last season. So you had allowed me to get caught up, and we were so immersed in it. But those last couple seasons, there were so many kind of twists and turns, and it was going in so many different directions.
And we had like almost 2 years to theorize
exactly
what the last season was going to
Yeah. And
involved.
we started reading online about conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah.
Different podcasts about it.
I was listening to podcasts every day.
Yeah, and so I think it's just interesting and appropriate that you would bring that up, because I feel like it kind of falls in line with a little bit of what the conversation was going to be about today, which is sort of shifting gears and, switching directions as it relates to, career paths or career
Things
journeys.
not happening as you planned or thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we're at that age now as Gen Xers where, maybe we've had a couple careers, 2 or 3 careers or different job changes that have impacted our lives for the better or worse. And I just thought it was appropriate to talk about it. I feel like, changing jobs or careers can really be intimidating, but I think it's completely normal. I know that some studies have shown the average American are going to have about 12 jobs. Would you have guessed that to be a high number or a low number?
You mean in their
during their lifetime?
During their lifetime. That makes a little more sense. I was going to go, wait, as adults?
No, just during their lifetime. I mean,
Yeah.
With I think an average, they said tenure of maybe around 4 years working for each employer. But I know that, I feel like changing jobs is more frequent during our younger years, obviously, because we're so flaky as kids or youth. As we begin to sort of navigate the workforce as younger folks and then discover our interests and talents as we get older. But I think the Bureau of Labor Statistics said between the ages of 35 and 44, they estimate about 3 career changes total. And it started to make me think, back in 2004, I'd been thinking a lot about, kind of where I was and where I was headed in my young career. And it's funny how life works, how we can get so comfortable in our routines, even when they don't serve us anymore. It's like I started to feel off somewhat. And I realized that I wasn't growing, I wasn't challenged, and my days just sort of felt like a vicious cycle, and I couldn't remember the last time I had actually looked forward to my work. So I started thinking, what if I did something else? What if there's a whole new world out there for me? At first, that thought in and of itself scared me. And I don't scare easily.
Right.
But I feel like changing careers sort of feels like, you're walking into the unknown. And I think to a lot of people, that's really, really terrifying.
Especially if you have a family.
Yep. And I did. I had a young family at the time. So there's risk, there's uncertainty. And the worst part was the fear of failure, which I'm not that type of person that's gonna fail in my mind.
Exactly.
And so I'd invested so much time and energy into that path I was on. What if I fail? What if I don't make it? It's easier to sort of stay in the comfort of the familiar, even if it doesn't light me up anymore.
Yeah.
But then I asked myself one day, I was like, well, what if I don't? What if I don't make the leap and stay stuck in a place that's not fulfilling? What if I keep going through the motions and let the years, pass me by? That fear of staying exactly where I was became scarier than the fear of actually trying something new. So there I was kind of at this crossroads. The decision to change careers wasn't easy, but I felt like it was necessary for me and for my family at the time. I had to be honest with myself about what I wanted, with my life or from my life. I wanted to wake up excited, and I wanted to wake up, inspired and engaged. I wanted to feel like I was growing and learning and truly making a difference, because I felt like that's what was meant for me to do. And I was ready to step out of my comfort zone and embrace that challenge, and because I knew that was the only way to find the fulfillment that I'd been missing. So I don't feel like there's any, magic formula. I don't feel like there's any perfect path necessarily, but I myself have learned that it's okay to take small steps, to learn as I go, to fail, which is super hard for me, and to pick myself up again. It's a process. And maybe, I don't know, just maybe it's the most important journey that I'll ever take. I don't know yet, but that's kind of where I was and where I'm at. So
that's big. That's a
lot.
lot.
I didn't mean to get so deep with it.
No, I mean, that's a lot at once. Dude, I live in deep. We did a whole episode about how I'm incapable of small talk. So I'm always there. I'm always there with you. But that's a lot to take in. And I agree with so much of what you said, and I relate to it as well. And I think, too, just because I'm married to someone so different from us, you mentioned fear of failure, and that's something that just is not or was not part of your vocabulary. And I feel the same way, and not just career-wise, but I think that you and I were brought up to, I think, Mom and Dad had a way of modeling for us that everything works out. Everything has a way of working out. And there doesn't have to be a rock bottom. Mm-hmm. There doesn't have to be an epic failure. There's always a solution.
Yeah.
And
especially if you do things the right way. You know,
yeah.
And what I mean by that is like living your life the right way. You know, doing right by others, doing the right things in your career or whatever you choose.
Yeah, and just being basically responsible people and
accountable. And
yeah, so I feel like people fortunate as we are, we had the kind of support system to be able to take those risks and know that not that someone was going to bail us out, because that wasn't our existence. Mm-hmm. It was not our reality. But that we were raised by problem solvers and thus became problem solvers ourselves. So that is an important component to being able to take risks like we've taken.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of just in our DNA, honestly.
And, you know, as scary as a career move can be, it's not so scary that you think there's going to be no way out or no way to fix it.
Yeah, I think certainly when I had, if I had any kind of degree of a fear of failure, it was very short-lived. Because I always operate like I can't worry about that. Like I can worry about it for like a half a second, and then it's just like mission. I'm on a mission.
Exactly.
So it's like you said, failure was never really an option for me, but I had to think about it for a split second.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a perfect segue because you were talking about our parents. I mean, it all starts with them.
Yeah.
So you and I know how their careers, or you want to call it a job, in Mom's case before she started her career. I just want us to think about like how their careers evolved and what was our perception of their career paths. Were we really observant about what they were doing? Were we clear about what they were doing, or was it just Mom and Dad are going to work and we live in this house and we have whatever? Did we pay attention to kind of what their path was and why it was what it was, or why they were what they were?
Well, for me, I know that.
And what do we get from that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, one of my earliest memories is Mom picking us up one night from our grandma, Ledbetter. Mm-hmm. We're getting pretty loose with our
loosey goosey, baby,
with our true identities.
It's all good.
But she was babysitting us because Mom was working at Pizza Hut.
I remember that.
Just because I can see the porch, I can see her uniform.
Yeah, because it was right there in town.
Yeah. So, but like I said, that's one of my earliest memories. Fast forward a couple years, Dad in his late 20s got really sick. He first started to have those colon intestinal issues,
colostomy bag,
and it was really, really frightening. And I know that it scared Mom enough to go back to college.
Yeah, scared the hell out of her.
Yeah, so because she had 3 kids, and if something happened to him, I need to be able to support. Mm-hmm. And they started young, so they were married with a baby on the way. I think Mom was only 19, and he was just like out of college.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah.
So anyway, they did something I think that we don't do as a culture, as a society anymore. Like, let's make it work. We're married now. We have a baby on the way, and it's time to get a job and make ends meet and do what we need to do.
And that's why I say I think it's in our DNA, because I was obviously too young to remember their reactions or Mom's plan. Mm-hmm. But she had that in her, and Dad has the same, certainly. But she instantly was worried about what was going to happen to him to provide. So she instantly got into survival mode. She didn't sit there and, woe is me.
Right.
What am I going to do? Who am I going to rely on? It was, okay, here's what I had. So she had an intense motivation and survival instinct.
And she had started college.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think she went for a year and then,
Yeah, but my point is like that just kind of says a lot about who she is and who we are, because we're connected to them.
Mom is very much a woman of action. Mm-hmm. Mom does not sit too long in a problem.
Yeah.
Mom goes very, very quickly to problem solving.
Yeah.
If she doesn't like something, she'll find a way to change it.
Yeah, if you don't know her real well and you're just around her like in a social setting and she's giggly and bubbly and kind of seems like she's coming off as spacey,
Would never.
I can promise you,
No.
that ain't our mother.
No.
No, she's very much focused person when she needs to be.
Incredibly motivated.
She's a doer.
She's a doer, and I think that's where I get that part of myself.
Yeah.
And but speaking of her going back to school, she was inspired to go back to school, scared into going back to school and finishing her degree. And we were at an age where that's another thing. I mean, we live near one of the satellite schools for IU, and it's a commuter school. I went there for about 2 years through my college education, and you see a whole mix of age ranges. I never once saw a child. Mom took us to class with her.
Yep.
I remember that some of my earliest
too.
memories are sitting next to her in a college class coloring
Book, yep.
coloring books.
I remember that too. And we knew to be quiet.
We were so well behaved. People would comment on how well behaved we were.
I ended up having that professor when I was in college, by the way.
Did you really?
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with him about it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. I was like, do you remember a woman back in the early 80s that brought a set of kids in a summer class or whatever? And he was like, yes. I go, yeah, it's me.
Yeah, and there were some occasions where, for whatever reason, I would be the only one with her. I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that. Little bits and pieces of it, but
And
I remember it.
I just had one kid. I full-time job, one child. I cannot imagine how she did it. To work and go to school and have us three. So close in age. I just don't know how the woman did it.
Well, I mean, like you said, we were behaved when we needed to be. I mean, we were little shits at home, like around each other when we were just messing around.
Still not easy.
Yeah, but not easy. But listen, if you have that skill that she had, where she would pinch your skin.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're gonna act right.
And curse you without moving her lips.
Which was actually genius if you think about it, because
I think that's every Gen X parent. I think that's every baby boomer's talent.
But hear me out.
Ventriloquism.
But hear me out. I think that approach was genius because she never had to worry about the sound of a slap to her kids. It was simply a quiet, I look like I'm grabbing your wrist, but I'm twisting the skin a little bit.
Pinching.
Yeah, it was effective. If anything else, it was effective.
So that was, that's one of my earliest experiences, I guess, in seeing Mom model that kind of ethic. And
yep.
I mean, if that doesn't inspire a person, then nothing will get you.
Yeah, I remember her getting her degree finally and getting that first teaching job. So I must have been 5 or 6. But I remember.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, even at that age and not really knowing much about anything, I even remember how. I remember, how you like remember little bits and pieces of your childhood, like like maybe each year of your age, you remember like 2 or 3 like really big things.
Yeah.
I remember when she accepted that offer to work, her first teaching job. I remember how she celebrated, like how she reacted to it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Like I vividly remember the celebration of that, and I remember thinking, "Wow, that's important. Whatever just happened to her is important.
Deal.
Is a big deal." Like people don't understand just little things like a reaction or a celebration or how you handle, something emotionally or whatever. That stuck with me my entire life.
Yeah.
So it's been almost 40 years.
And Mom and Dad never seemed to let on what a struggle it must have been for them.
Yeah.
Personally.
Right.
Which is very telling.
Yeah. Because they knew that wasn't part of their job description as parents. You don't make or allow the young
You
children.
don't burden children.
Yeah, you don't burden them. You don't allow them to stress about what you're going through.
Oh, never. Yeah. That is like textbook emotional immaturity.
Exactly.
To let your kids in on things that they have no business worrying about.
Yeah.
And Mom and Dad never did that.
Oh, they were literal pros at that.
Yeah. Somehow.
I see a lot of parents try to do that and succeed at times, but they were pros at that. And it was like, I never felt worried or scared about anything.
Never.
And it was all because of their emotional intelligence with that.
And I was going to bring that up a little bit later, but let's backtrack a little bit. Even before Mom finished her degree and got that first job, Dad was in the Air Force, so we've talked about that. Mm-hmm. And they moved all over. and even in the Philippines where I ended up being born. And so mom was pregnant with me, and Jen was 2.5, and mom was hospitalized for culture, like literally for culture shock is what they called it. Just the environment, being overseas and a baby herself, so young and inexperienced. And, God bless our grandma. She wasn't the softest shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And so if mom went to her and like, I don't like it here, I want to come home. And you're married, you stay with your husband, and I know looking back, mom is grateful that, they stuck it out together, but just traveling, the moves, one move after another, when the military just sends families here and there and everywhere, and you've got 2 little kids under the age of 5, and then a third one on the way. Like, they did a lot of moving and traumatic moving,
Mm-hmm.
like to go to a completely different.
Yeah, not 10 minutes away moving.
Right. So that is impressive.
Yeah. Really, if you think about it, mom had no choice to be the way she was, because grandma, while sweet, was not a beat around the bush kind of person.
Yeah.
And our grandfather was a military, like Marines drill instructor. She really had no choice but to just be hard-nosed when she needed to be and just, move. She just had to move.
Yeah, you just had to do what you had to do.
I'm not talking about moving from one house to another. It's just in life, she just had to move. When it was time to move, she moved. You know what I mean?
And just adjusted.
Mm-hmm. And even Dad, I'm just going to switch gears. I mean, Dad kind of had his change in career path.
Right.
It was not immaterial. It was substantial.
It was substantial. I've got that written down here.
Yeah, I mean, I can get into it. Or
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just remember, people were talking about, what did your dad do when you were growing up? I was like, I didn't know much as a young kid, but I remember every time I would see a commercial plane fly overhead, I would say, oh, there's Dad.
Yeah.
Because he was going to Chicago every week or whatever it was, because I think his company, I might get some of the detail wrong, but I think his company was headquartered out there, and he was a regional sales manager of some agents, and he had to go there quite a bit. So
selling insurance.
Yeah, selling insurance. So that was his first, big move out of college and out of the Air Force. He had little odd jobs until he got that.
Yeah, like once they were back home and settled,
Mm-hmm.
and had all of 3 of us, and mom starts teaching, and then he's selling insurance. And here's the thing, speaking of Game of Thrones,
Oh, here she goes.
you remember that scene where Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow finally meet, and he's brooding,
Mm-hmm.
overlooking the cliffs,
Mm-hmm.
and they're talking about how just because you're good at something doesn't mean you enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Okay, so Dad was
That's a perfect example.
the Jon Snow of insurance salesmen.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Did you just come up with that?
I did,
Well done.
but he hated it.
He hated it. And I mean, we're going to sit here and just like talk about how awesome our parents are, but we've known this, but Dad said that when he got that job, he literally had, I don't know what the number was, but it was like $20 in their account. I mean, it was something really low.
Yeah.
Enough to get like some pizza and some drinks or whatever.
Well, I think the story goes is that on payday,
Mm-hmm.
once the bills were paid and the groceries they had enough left over for 6-pack of beer and a pizza.
Yeah, I mean, it was something to that effect, or he didn't have much even when he started, so he had to it was commission based.
Yeah.
So he knew that he didn't have a choice. He had to be successful. He had to sell to make money to live. So again, I mean, that stuff's not easy. And so, I mean, it's just a testament to both of them.
And he used to say he could sell a rosary to the Pope.
Yeah.
I never got that until I was much older.
Yeah, I have heard him say that.
But he was good at it.
He was really good at it.
But he was terribly unhappy.
Yeah. But we didn't really know that.
We didn't know.
Whatever.
And he was gone a lot.
He was gone a lot.
So mom was a single mom a lot.
Yeah, and I'm sure that affected their relationship at some point, because...
But again, how would we have known?
How would we have known that? But so, anyway, Dad made... I commend Dad quite a bit. I mean, for obvious reasons, but for that alone, for him to, say, I'm I care more about like the health of my relationships with the people that I love. I care more about being there for my kids and being present as a dad. You know, he made this decision, as we know, when I think I was in third or fourth grade, to completely stop doing what he was doing, which back then he was making probably the equivalent of well over six figures, you know, in today's world.
You were older than that because his first day as a high school teacher was my first day of high school.
Okay, so I was
you would have been in middle school.
No, you're right. You're right. I'm thinking about when he started coaching.
Yeah, and
because he started coaching before he switched.
So his major was
secondary ed.
He had the right major. It's just that that was back when teaching jobs were a hell of a lot harder to come by than they are now, and so that I remember about that time period. We lived on a nicer street than some of our friends, and I do remember a couple of times getting that label slapped onto me that we were, quote, rich.
Right.
But we weren't. We knew we weren't. But again, that was just something that mom and dad didn't flaunt. But we managed to have this nice house by the time we were in grade school.
Had the pool.
And we got put in a swimming pool. And so we had those things.
And we went on summer vacations.
We went on vacations
to Florida,
once a year.
So it's like...
So it wasn't like, so we weren't spoiled, but we were very blessed, and they were, we had everything we needed or wanted for the most part. But one thing I do remember about that shift was a crack in mom's armor, because she was terrified when he made that move.
Oh, I bet.
And he needed to do it. It was just eating him up. And so, like I said, he had the degree because that was always what he wanted to do, right? Yep. So, but just making that switch must have been so scary, given, we've got this house, we've got a mortgage, we've got a pool, we've got, because he was going to take a significant...
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't immaterial. It was...
Yeah. So I remember her being visibly worried.
But once again,
supportive,
right? That's what I was going to say.
But visibly worried.
Visibly worried. But once again, that says a lot about everything. Says a lot about them and how they are, right? She had that worry, but she was also like, okay, well, let's just. She was basically saying, by letting him do that, I want you to be happy enough to where I'm going to worry about it, but we're just going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not a lot of people can do that. Not a lot of people work that way.
Oh, let's not forget to mention that her first teaching job. For the first...
was like an hour away.
Forgive me, Mom, for not remembering how many years you did this, but...
It was like 15 years, wasn't it?
Your commute, at least.
Yeah.
Your commute to and from work was like 2 hours of your day.
Yeah.
And then to get home and have dinner... We had dinner together every night, somehow. When did she grade papers? Hell if I know.
It's like, from our perspective, nothing changed. Our life was the same in terms of...
Exactly. And, God... How the hell?
I think that was like 14 or 15 years.
Like how did they do that without?
Yeah. So I just, and you were right. I mean, I was thinking of him starting to coach, because he was what they call a lay coach, where you don't teach, but you're a basketball coach. He actually started coaching when I was in fourth or fifth grade. He coached a couple of years before he started teaching.
Because you couldn't get the head coaching positions.
So that was kind of my...
Unless you were a teacher.
Yeah. So
teachers got first pick.
Exactly. So anyway, so yeah, I just remember some of those things growing up, and I feel like it helped shape us.
Yeah, and I can remember two messages sort of stick out to me. The messages that those events sent or imprinted on me. The first was that it made me feel like anything was possible, and that because we were aware of what a significant change it was going to be, and I think they even prepared us, like, we can do all these things, we have all these things, but kids, you need to be aware that things are going to change. But it made me think that anything's possible, and it also proved to me that happiness is more important than money, and that was a big one.
Huge. I took that away big time.
Yeah, big time. And then I just always remember, when it comes to, what do you want to be when you grow up? Dad always said to me, figure out what you're passionate about and then figure out how to get paid for it.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great message. But interestingly, if you ever follow Mike Rowe,
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, not
yeah,
real
I don't
closely,
follow
but
him
yeah.
religiously, but I catch little blurbs,
Yeah, little blurbs that I
videos.
hear, I like what he says.
Yeah, he's great dude and really thoughtful,
Insightful.
insightful guy, and he's always on a mission to find the dignity in every job.
Mm.
What makes this country run, So I like him for that value, that core value. But I heard him a few years back talking about how that's bad advice. No, don't do something that you're passionate about. Pay your bills, and the passion will come in other opportunities.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I'm butchering what he's
No, but I get where you're
his
going.
philosophy,
But I get where you're going.
But he kind of takes it a little bit different direction. Like, no, you're not going to like what you do.
Right.
You're probably not going to like what you do. Like most of us, we just get a job, pay the bills, save, whatever. But he encourages people to find
a purpose
joy
outside of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's well said. I'm glad you brought that up.
And I'll close this little segment with this. One of the characteristics of our generation is that work-life balance. And I feel like we were set up to appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Based on everything that we've talked about so far.
Yeah. That's pretty powerful stuff so far.
Yeah.
I mean, if people, I mean, our listenership is growing, and I'm very grateful for that. If people haven't figured it out by now, if you don't know our parents directly, or if you've never met them, or even if you have and just don't know them as well as some other people that we're closer to, they obviously had a huge impact on our lives outside of work, in our jobs. So
until you brought this subject up the other day, I hadn't really sat down and tried to put pen to paper about the way that shaped my perception of career versus
I'm glad I was able to do
life
that.
happiness.
Our parents, in the best way I can say it, or the simplest way, is our parents were the most amazing, impactful, and influential people. No, not the one of the. They are the most impactful and influential people in my life.
Same.
And it was because of their actions,
Same.
on top of their words. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't want to presume that we are an anomaly here. I think that probably most of our friends have the same kind of parents. I think it's just their generation.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh, and I wasn't trying to make it as ours
no.
are better than yours, but I'm telling you right now,
Ours are better than yours.
saying it without saying it. No, I'm just joking. But
No, I get you.
I really do feel I'm confident in saying that they are the reason I am the way I am. They're the reasons I've done things that I've done in my career. They're the reasons that they shaped everything about me. And I don't know if they were I'm sure that some of that was intentional, but like I said, it's outside of just words, because their words were always powerful and they always had meaning to them. But for me, action is really important. If I see people taking action, to me, that's leading. And our parents led. Their leadership and influence was next level.
Yeah.
In the way they approached everything.
I agree.
And I don't know if they really felt like they were doing that, but that's 100% what they were doing.
I'm willing to guarantee, we're going to have to talk to them after this, after they listen. I'm just going to put it on the record. I'm fairly confident that neither one of them felt like they knew what they were doing the entire time. And I'm sure both of them have plenty of regret. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Dad regrets not being home enough when we were really little.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'm sure Mom regrets, being too busy having a job and going to school and studying at night and getting us ready. The woman would put our hair in curlers every night before bed. We were some of the cleanest, well-dressed kids in our elementary school. Mom exudes A game.
Oh yeah. Game face, bro.
Yeah.
Mom had that.
She vibrates A game.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like she probably feels a lot of guilt for not having time to play with us. Our generation, we feel like we have to do what our parents couldn't or wouldn't do. Don't you feel like our kids are little shitheads a lot of the times because we did the opposite and we tried to...
Oh, yeah. We try to make it easy on
We
our...
tried to make it easy on them, or we tried to, do the things we saw in sitcoms where your parent sits down on your bed and doesn't, there's not this yell at you, go to your room, kind of thing. It's like you sit down on the bed and at the end of the half hour, everything's solved and tied up in a little bow. And parents also apologize. I'm sorry for yelling.
Oh, I know.
like,
and I think there's that whole keeping up with the Joneses thing. I think our generation was not as good. I think we were
on the cusp of social media.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, well, so and so has that, so our kid should have that, or so and so's kid's going to do that. Our kid should go. It's like,
yeah,
we got caught up in that web a little bit, and I don't think our parents gave two shits about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, and
we're doing what's best for ours.
Yeah,
that's just the way it's going to be.
Exactly, but like any parents, I'm sure they felt. I'm sure they felt most of the time like they were searching for a light switch in a pitch black room, and I'm sure they have a lot of regret. But
yeah,
I can't say that I would change much at all.
Oh no, it's like you said. Mom was probably like, she probably to herself thought, I wish I could find more time to play with my kids and be. But like going back to what you said earlier, kind of like, I don't know if this is considered a metaphor, what it's considered, but as it relates to her kids, she was paying the bills, meaning she was making sure that we were dressed properly, cleaned, looked presentable, and everything looked like everything was together.
Yeah, we were together.
But then once that was done, she just had to be like, ugh, and like just sit and just.
Yeah, well, she told
probably
me once
wore her out.
She took a little mini tape recorder with her to class, and she would record her classes, and then at night, she would have to re-listen.
Yeah,
just because
crazy.
There was so much going on.
That's crazy.
At home, yeah, like
so as tiring as the kid that we probably made her, she just had to pay the bills, so to speak, and get us.
And then had to just work that commute for so many years.
Yeah, and then just try to figure out a way to relax herself in her own way, I guess.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, that's good stuff. How about... Yeah. Oh, sorry, I finished your thought.
Oh, well, did you want to talk about what we want it to be?
Yeah, because mine was funny.
Well, we all get that question when we're little. What do you want to be when you grow up? And it's always like, it's not what do you want to do. It's what do you want to be? Because there's a title attached, I want to be a dancer. I want to be a ballerina. I want to be a princess. I want to be a firefighter, Mm-hmm. I first wanted to be an OBGYN because I wanted to deliver babies. That was my first.
Is that right? I've never heard,
Oh, yeah, for years.
I would consider us pretty close, and I've never heard that before. We learn so much about each other in these podcasts.
I know.
You learned my affinity for Civil War history.
I know.
And I didn't know you wanted to be an OBGYN. Interesting.
And I didn't know that you had that, urge to travel inside you like I did.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to be an OBGYN for several years, and I thought I wanted to deliver babies. But then Dad's friend, who was a doctor, gave me a book.
Oh, my gosh. And it spooked you out, huh?
It spooked me.
Oh, man.
No, actually, it did spook me a little bit, but I was rather young. But I think once science was introduced into the curriculum, I realized I had a weakness there that maybe wasn't going to serve me well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I never knew that.
Then I wanted to be a marine biologist. I've always loved Jaws, as we know. I've talked about it. So I've always had this fascination with sharks. And I remember when I was 10 years old, I remember watching the very, very first Shark Week. And it was the greatest week of my life. It was nonstop shark action. I really wanted to be a marine biologist.
I didn't know that either.
Really?
No.
I wanted to be in the shark cage.
Is there anything else you need to share that I don't know about?
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty.
That's so cool. My what did I want to be when I grew up? My aspirations were a little bit more in the fantasy land realm. So that's why I said it was funny. Was I never grew up thinking about being something serious like a doctor or a lawyer, like you're mentioning. I was always at first I wanted to be dad. I legit when I was a kid wanted to be my dad when I grew up, but And I wasn't saying that to be silly. It was like, I got to find a way where I can be my dad. And then once I was smart enough and old enough to realize I couldn't accomplish that, I wanted to be the first baseman for the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know what I mean? Like I was obsessed with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So mine was more like Fantasyland-ish type stuff. And I think it's funny only because it holds true to when I got a little bit older and I actually had to start thinking about what I want to do. Like when I was in college, I would change majors so much because I didn't have one thing specific that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So as a kid, it was always like I wanted to be my dad. I wanted to be a first baseman for Chicago Cubs. Probably not reasonable. I was a pretty good little baseball player, but probably not reasonable. Maybe at some point I wanted to be a professional golfer. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah.
I never like really sat down and was thinking about actual, day jobs type things.
Yeah. My problem was I wanted to be everything.
Right.
Well, and I think that's another thing that's something that I get from Dad is this just unquenchable, insatiable curiosity about everything. And, I mean, at one point I wanted to be, when I was a little older, I actually came home from Ball State after the first semester because I really, truly thought I wanted to be an actress. And this is funny. I'll make fun of myself because of Romeo and Juliet. That came out. I can see you. Stop.
Didn't you have like a shirt or a poster or something?
Okay, look.
Or you probably had like a scrapbook.
Did I have a shirt?
You probably
or a
had
poster?
a scrapbook of it.
I had a whole box of Romeo and Juliet memorabilia, which pales in comparison to my Twilight collection later.
Hold on, I have to do my usual nerd alert. Nerd alert.
I was so... Now look, the best criticism I've heard anyone have about the Baz Luhrmann production of Romeo and Juliet from, 96? The best people can do is, they're like talking Shakespeare and like carrying guns. It's so dumb. That's the best you can do? Then you need to go sit at the kiddie table. Because that's the dumbest take. Like, you can hate Shakespeare and just say, you know what, the language is just a barrier for me, so I'm not into it. Fine, I can hang with that. But don't give me this stupid, it's updated, but they're like talking Shakespeare. Like, you're dumb, and you need to go back to the bottom tier of thought. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought it was the most visually stunning thing I'd ever seen.
I never saw it.
You...
Not that version, no.
No, wait. Have you seen it yet to this day?
Mm-mm.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Did we just create a new episode?
We just created a new episode, ladies and gentlemen.
Good gracious.
Joe?
What have I done?
Okay. Have you seen anything Baz Luhrmann has done?
I have never heard that name until you just...
Have you seen DiCaprio's Great Gatsby?
No.
Okay, then okay. Baz Luhrmann is a very distinctive director. You know you're watching a Baz Luhrmann production. It's incredible. And listeners out there who, if you know, you know. You're talking like just visual assault, sudden jerks of the camera, bright, bold, vivid colors, paintings on the screen. Every frame is a work of art.
You're talking with your hands again.
Sorry. My hands are getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's like you're going to hit my picture up there above
I'm going
the
to
couch.
reach the sky. Anyway, so he's just a very different director. And it's like the difference between watching a standard run-of-the-mill movie and then going to an amusement park, and the amusement park is the movie. That's a Baz Luhrmann production, okay? Now, take that and add Romeo and Juliet to it. Now, I didn't expect to spend this much time on it, but I've been triggered.
No doubt.
I was inspired to go back home, save money, because I was going to go to Los Angeles, and I needed to be part of that. I wanted to be part of that creative process. And, I mean, we don't have to get into why that plan changed, but we're going to watch it together. We're going to watch it together. I made you watch Social Network. You dug it. You will love You will love it.
Maybe when we're in the Pacific Northwest, when we're just chilling.
No, because I think
Or not.
because I think we're gonna have to spend all the time out of doors, taking in the landscape.
I just meant when we were done with that and we were just chilling in the
We're gonna have
rooms.
to watch it here on your big screen.
Okay.
And I want to see your face through the whole thing.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Now you guys know that are listening why I said it's important to get her Game of Thrones stuff on, because she will. I told you. Just don't say I didn't warn you. Okay. Well, anything else, Mary Beth, on what you want to be when you grow up?
Those were the big ones.
Okay. Well, let's take a break, and then I think after break we can really get into, as we started getting old enough where we had to start making some type of
We
decisions.
had to be realistic.
Yeah, we had to be planning and be realistic.
How did we go from first baseman on the Cubs team to and actress to where we are now?
Right, to where we got our first paycheck, our real paycheck. Hey, listeners, do you like judging people as much as we do?
Then judge us.
To submit your criticisms and complaints about our show, you can reach us at gotohell@bazinga.biz.
For all other comments, questions, or suggestions about future episodes, drop us a line. Send us a text from our website at thebestofgenx.buzzsprout.com and click on the link just above the show notes.
Or email us at thebestofgenx@gmail.com. Okay, we are back.
Oh, announcement.
Yes?
We have 2 more countries to welcome since our last episode.
You haven't told me this. You're usually telling me this ahead of time.
We have Grenada
Granada.
and Denmark. Welcome to the party.
Oh, you know what? You did tell me that. I thought you meant new ones besides that. You did tell
No.
me that recently. Okay.
Our
I was about to
list-
smack you over the
Yeah.
head.
Yeah, because I always update you, obviously. I get excited when I see,
Yeah.
new countries added to the list.
super
So
cool.
we're now in 19 countries.
Awesome.
Thank you, Grenada. Thank you, Denmark. I hope you keep listening.
Cool.
And hey, I still see you, Indonesia. I still see you.
Oh, yeah?
Numbers are climbing still.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hello.
Back up off us.
We might have to put Bali on the list.
Oh, my Lord. Mary Beth.
Well, I had a former student post recently her vacation pictures. She went to Bali.
How do you say her name?
Kajal.
Kajal, yeah.
Kajal, and we called her Kaji.
Yeah.
She is like a Kardashian, this girl. She's just a doll. And her pictures it made it look like paradise.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Unbelievable.
Awesome. Well,
So I just wanted to give a shout out.
okay. Good shout out. So, Mary Beth, here we are. We've talked about our parents and how they shaped who we became. We talked about what we want to be when we grew up as kids, and some of it was kind of fun and silly. But let's get a little serious now. So we're both entering that college phase of our life, right? Where we're kind of being forced because of time to plan our future.
I think our country does this all wrong. I don't have a solution, but I just think it's nuts that we push, this choose a career path when you don't even know who you are. I mean, it wasn't until I was like 40 that I realized what my greatest strengths were. And I have a mind for law. This is what I should be doing.
Right.
Or any other number of things
Yeah.
that, you don't know who you are. You don't know what your talents are. You don't.
It's almost like picture Father Time with like a wristwatch,
Yeah.
and you're like 18 or 19, and they're pointing at the wristwatch going, okay, you got about 3 or 4 years to figure this out.
Pick your major.
I mean, Mary Beth, when I was 18, like my reflexes were like barely fully developed, right?
Right.
So
It's an impossible burden.
it is, but then even the issue I had that I tell people about all the time is, I started my career in the early 2000s, and back then it was such it was such a requirement that you had to have a bachelor's degree just to even get your ass in the door for an interview.
Exactly.
So
Which is a total scam.
it's a scam. We know that it's a scam, but it was just, that was it back then. Like that was like ingrained in our minds, was you have to get a college degree to make
I
anything of
hope
yourself.
that is changing.
I think it is. I think
Okay,
there's
because
a big shift to that.
There has to be.
I've even softened my stance, because back then I fell into that trap where I was telling my kids, you have to go to college. You have to
Right.
or else you're not going to make anything of yourself.
Right.
And that's ridiculous. We know too many people that have been successful that didn't go to college because they're like,
They went to trade school.
yeah, I'm not going to waste my time with that.
They don't emphasize vocation enough at all.
Right.
Entrepreneurship.
Now, listen.
Okay.
I'm a person that has 3 college degrees, so I'm not saying there's zero value in it at all.
Exactly.
However, I'm not saying it's the end all be all. It's not the magic potion.
We very much grew up in that era.
That's the era we grew up in. So I did it.
College was the way to a better life.
I checked off whatever box the society told me I had to check off
Yeah.
to make myself competitive.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I have figured out through my wisdom that's been thrust upon me. No, I'm just joking. I have figured out that it's really more about your mental fortitude. It's about how well you can balance things. It's about relationships, connections with other people, and optimizing those things.
Right.
It's not about anything else. Because do I remember 3 things that I learned in college? No.
My social security number.
Right. So I can very much tell you that it's a scam in the sense of I wasn't able to apply a lot of what I learned in college from like a textbook perspective.
Nope.
Because it didn't help me in the real world.
Nope.
Everything I just described, relationships, being able to learn how to balance time or people or whatever, that's what helped me grow and prepare me for things that I do today.
And see, I taught for college credit, so I was always having to sell that to students. And year after year, it got harder and harder for me, this internal conflict, because I just wasn't buying it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would at least sell the experience, and just to say, you have a safe way to sort of dip your toe in this independence, even if you're not too far from home, you have a chance to sort of live this simulation of adulthood in a safe, relatively safe manner, but you learn time management skills and those sort of things.
Yeah, so I mean, I think my story is probably a little bit quicker than yours in terms of my college experience and kind of how I got to my first sort of like, career or job out of school. So for me, I know we've talked about it in other episodes where, we talked about how, I basically got a general studies degree.
Yeah.
Because my college, my college experience was such. Yes, I had fun.
Yes, I had fun.
Yes, I knew I was intelligent enough to finish college. My issue, like I said, was growing up through high school. I didn't know what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I just really couldn't pinpoint something that fascinated me or I was passionate enough about that wasn't fantasy type stuff.
Yeah.
But I always inherently believed in myself. I've just always been that person where I'm not sticking my chest out and being like, look at me, look who I am, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I always like internally knew I was going to do something well. Mm-hmm. That's just what I knew.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what that was. So my college experience was first year, I said, okay, computers were kind of up and coming,
yeah.
The internet. And so I said, I want to be a computer science major. I took my very first course. It's like the most entry-level computer course you can possibly take. I literally took that course on day 1, got the syllabus, and about 30 minutes in, I got up and walked out.
That's hilarious.
I was like, I'm out on that. Then I went to marketing because back in the mid-late 90s, you'd see movies that would talk about...
Advertising seemed so exciting.
It was so in then. Right?
It seemed so exciting.
And I'm like, well, I probably have the personality for those characters. I probably have that same person. I could probably be successful. So I changed it to marketing. I maybe took a couple marketing courses. I was like, yeah, I'm out on that. And then my favorite one was, I was like, okay, well, my parents were teachers, right? So I was like, maybe that's just what I'm supposed to be doing. So I became a secondary ed degree, or major, rather, student.
This I didn't know.
Yeah. Okay. So this was like 2.5 years, maybe 3 years into school. So I'm like, I keep bouncing back and forth. And I will never forget this conversation with my dad as long as I live. And I hope to God that he remembers it because it meant everything to me. because how genuine he was in his response. So I was a secondary ed major, Mary Beth, and two things happened. Okay,
Okay.
two things happened that I mean, we laugh. It really shifted the course of what I did going forward. So I got to the observation course part of my degree where I had to go observe an elementary school and I had to observe a high school. So it was still fairly early on in the process. I mean, I wasn't student teacher or anything to that effect. I wasn't that far along. But I went to an elementary school and I went to high school. I didn't enjoy it. Okay. I didn't enjoy going through the high
That's
school.
the way you say it. I didn't enjoy it.
No, the high school part especially because I was still fairly young at the time, 19, 20, 21, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And those high schoolers were just treating this older history teacher like, a box of shit. I mean, it was awful.
Yeah.
And I just wanted, my fist started clenching up and I was like, I'm going to swing at somebody here. It was a pretty bad high school. And it wasn't on this side of the bridge. It was on the other side of the bridge.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I got frustrated and I leaned on my dad, as I always did, for guidance. And if there's anything our dad is like elite at, it is like being able to listen to what you're saying, think about what you're saying, and just always have the right answer.
Yeah.
So I was frustrated, and Dad was downstairs by his little bar area, and I sat across from him, and I said, Dad, I'm struggling with this major. I don't know if it's something I really want to do. What do you think? I was like, you and Mom taught. He's like, well, why do you think you're doing it? I said, the summer's off. Maybe I could coach. I don't know. But I feel like that's lifestyle is what I might enjoy. Mm-hmm. And he's literally like shaking his head. Yes. Again, I hope he remembers this, but he's making himself a drink. And he let me talk for about 5 or so minutes, and he stopped and was kind of shaking his head like in acknowledgement. And then he looked at me and he goes, let me ask you a question. And he was so calm about it. He goes, do you want to make money? And I go, yeah, kind of. I think I do. Like, I feel like that's who I don't want to say it this way. I was going to say, I feel like that's who I am, but that's not.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've got the inner douche. He's there.
I knew that was going to come out wrong. I just felt like I was meant for something pretty big.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I
felt like I was meant to do well.
Yeah.
And I promise I'm not trying to discredit a teacher, a lifelong teacher, a retired teacher. He just asked that question plainly. And he was a teacher. Yeah. So it's not like he was trying to embarrass.
Because nobody goes into it for the money.
Yeah. He wasn't trying to embarrass the profession or shit on it or anything like that. But he literally said, do you want to make money? And I said, yeah, I feel like I do, is what I said to him. And he looked at me, he goes, then you don't need to be a teacher. He goes, and it's like what you said. He goes, because that's not really what you do it for.
Right.
And I kind of leaned myself back in that stool or that bar stool, and I was like, oh my God, you're right, I guess. And I was like, well, here I go again. I got to change it again.
Yeah.
So I went back before I went back into my counselor's office, I went to my next class, which was, I think, like a night class. There was probably like 40 people in there, had the same major. And I asked my professor if I could talk to him in his office hours. And I went to his office afterwards and I said, I'm struggling with this major a little bit. I'm not really sure if it's something I want to do long term. I said, my dad kind of semi-talked me out of it, but not in a pushy way. He just kind of was giving me the pros and cons.
He was putting a mirror to yourself.
And so the second thing that happened was the professor looked at me and he said, well, let me tell you something. He goes, you are a sophomore by credit hours. He goes, that class that you were just in with me had 40 or so people, and probably 80 to 90% of those people are almost graduated, and you have the same major. Mm. What he was basically saying was, it's going to be super competitive in what you're trying to teach in anyway.
Yeah, it was not easy.
Yeah, so if you're graduating in a year or two, he goes, you're going to be competing with hundreds of people for the same job, and not that many schools around, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what he was getting at. So that kind of helped me make that final decision. Like, that was the nail in the coffin was, okay, I'm going to change my major.
I don't know how it compares to the rest of the country, but there was a long stretch where it was just really hard in this area to get a teaching job.
That was it. So
I think it's a lot easier now.
Yeah. So
teachers are leaving in droves.
Yeah. So to kind of close up on that, what happened was I thought about that stuff for a couple of days. I didn't speed into anything, but I thought about it for a couple of days. And one of my fraternity brothers, that was an older alumni and pretty successful in what he was doing at the time. I reached out to him and said, hey, here's what's happening. What do you think? Because you're doing well, right? You have people working for you. You own your own business. So I was kind of using my network that I had. So that goes back to, I was like, I have connections now. I have people that I can lean on for guidance outside of my parents that I can network with professionally. So I really use my resources to talk to these people. And the guy goes, listen, if you don't know what you want to be, He goes, just walk into your counselor's office on Monday, ask them what's the quickest degree you can get done and get out. He goes, and get the hell out of there. And he goes, and sell yourself.
Right.
That's exactly what he said. I was like, man, that's it. That's like what I've been thinking, but it's
Yeah.
like I just needed somebody to tell me that. So that's exactly what I did. I went to my counselor's office next Monday, and they said, general studies.
Well, you're not going to hear advice like that in your high school from your high school
Yeah.
counselor when they give you the little test to see what job you'd be suited for.
Yeah. So they looked at their sheet or whatever, and they said general studies will probably get you out here the fastest. So I changed it, and that's what I did. And once I did that, I was very disciplined and organized about getting the right classes in order, and just getting out of there and being done. And that's what I did. 120 credit hours, got my bachelor's, and I was like, all right, now it's time for you to figure it out.
Yeah.
Know? But I had what I needed to get in the door to figure it out.
Right.
And so that was kind of my college journey and like what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I also changed my major quite a bit. So I think at first it was something like history and poli-sci.
Poli-sci rings a bell. I think I remember you.
Yeah, because I was very in tune politically and just was fascinated by all of it. And I don't know, I just felt like that's where I'd be suited. And I always did well in all my history, social sciences.
Well, plus you and I grew up, we were in college during the 2000 election when Bush and Gore hanging Chad, like it was very
hanging Chad.
That stuck with us.
Exactly.
I mean, so that was a big moment.
Yeah. So, and then I switched at one point when I first went to IU Bloomington. That's where I finished out my college career. I did not start there. At that point, I thought apparel merchandising. Basically, it's Meryl Streep's character in The Devil Wears Prada.
Was she just a buyer?
Just a job where you sort of set the trends. You decide what products and accessories are in the next season, and you make a lot of those kind of decisions. I mean, there are all kinds of different, jobs within that or under that umbrella. But I didn't want to be a fashion designer, but I thought I would enjoy the business end of it.
She's kind of like Rachel Green, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's why one of the reasons I love Friends is I just love her job. So I still have that in me.
I just love her.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
But then I had had a lecture class that I didn't enjoy, and the old lady who taught it was very, very mean and cold, and it turned me off. And so,
way to go, teach.
And then I switched to sociology because that has always fascinated me. It's kind of like zooming out of psychology, where you're not just looking at human behavior, but human behavior in the context of groups.
But what do you think you would have done with that had you? I
wasn't sure.
Would you teach it, you think?
I wasn't sure, and teaching was never on my radar. Like, not once did I ever consider being a teacher. I never thought, teaching? Ew, no. I just never considered it.
Never considered it, yeah.
Because I, like you, always assumed, I felt in my heart, I was destined for bigger things. Well, then I took a journalism course when I was back at IUS, and we had an assignment to write a paper based on some very significant moment in journalistic history of a story that was published and the picture that was chosen and whether it was ethical. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And so it was our first essay that we had to write for the class. And after we had turned them in, the class after that, the professor, I'll never forget him, Jim Sinclair, he asked me to stay behind. I thought, oh shit. He said, I really enjoyed your essay. And this was like a very broad mass media type introductory level.
Sure.
And I'll never forget it. He said, I don't come across students like you very often, but you have a mind for this career. And I just wanted to talk to you about what your major is, what direction, where do you see yourself? And
isn't that so cool when you have those experiences?
I mean, without him taking those few minutes to say, hey, can you stay after a bit? He's the reason I changed my major to journalism, because he said, this essay tells me all I need to know about how your brain works. And you belong in journalism. You've got that investigative, inquisitive sense, but you also have a grasp for context. And that's where my interest in sociology, comes in. But without him taking the time to sit with me and tell me that, no one had ever set me down and said, you know what, you're really good at this. I mean, I had people pat you on the back, oh, good job in the play, or, oh, congratulations, oh, I'm so proud of your A. But no one had ever set me down and pointed to something that I did and said, you have a gift.
I was going to say, you said it better, but it's like they're basically looking at you and saying, you're different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're different.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. I'm happy that happened to you, because I had a similar college situation. I'll let you finish, but I want to share mine too. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's when I changed my major. And because I changed my major so many times and I changed my schools several times, I also took summer classes and ultimately graduated IU Bloomington with a bachelor's in journalism and a minor in sociology, only one semester late.
Oh,
so
okay.
instead of May of 2000, I graduated in December
cool.
of 2000.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I was able to make up that time that I lost bouncing around.
Right on.
So journalism was my major, and my goal at that point was law school.
Okay. Can I share my story?
Please.
It's kind of nerdier than yours, because yours seems more like professional. But what happened was, I don't know if I've ever shared this story. It actually amazes me to think that I may not have ever shared this story with you, because of the stuff that we share together. But I think it was like my second or third semester in college. I was taking a basic theater 101 course.
Oh, yeah.
So we had it in the art or in the theater department building. I can't remember, the Ogle.
I'm very familiar.
Okay, Ogle, or
Yeah.
wherever it was. And we were in, our class was in one of those studio rooms, right? And we all just like collected chairs, so we didn't have desks, it was just a studio room. And men and women obviously in the course. And so I'm 19-ish, and our instructor, our professor, was formerly a part of a big acting group. So she wasn't, I think she was from like Wisconsin or Minnesota or somewhere like that. She was back then, so this would have been, 25 something years ago. She probably was in her mid 30s, maybe, I would guess. Super eccentric, that type.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I God, if you remember her name, I would love.
Bringle?
Huh?
Bringle?
Ooh, I don't know.
Something
She
like that?
had like long, kind of dirty blonde hair. Anyway, she was very cool. She made an impression on me, although I can't remember her damn name. But I just remember watching her, interacting with her, and the way her style and the way she taught. Now, granted, I was in theater in high school, plays and all that, and so you and I both liked acting, and we kind of had funny fantasy aspirations. Okay, so to speed the story up, we just kind of had our normal course throughout the semester, and our final was, we were tasked with doing a scene with someone of the opposite sex. So she tried to mix it as best she could. And so it was a very serious scene, and it was pretty lengthy, and it was pretty emotional. Like, you had to like show emotion and like I said, be serious. So I wasn't thinking, like, I wasn't really taking it seriously, but I was like, this is an easy A, this course, right? That was my mindset. But I always enjoyed acting. So it was serious enough for me to show that I could do a little bit in that scene. And the person I got paired with was one of those more quiet, reserved types that you knew, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, you knew had never acted before.
Ah, damn it.
But you know what I mean?
Yes.
But she was really nice. She was a sweet girl.
Yeah.
But she was real reserved.
Yep.
So I knew I was going to carry it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, I'm going to do that.
So it's like trying to make love to someone who just lays there.
Okay. So wasn't going to go there, but I just knew you knew the type.
I know exactly.
So I took it serious. I prepared for it. And when we did the scene, I didn't have any nerves. I could tell she was nervous. So I'm having the scene with her, and there was very like dramatic pauses in the scene, and I had to look her in the face, and I had to like touch her cheek. I had to be very dramatic. And I remember when I got done with it, I thought, literally the only thing I thought when I got done with it was, oh, I did that pretty good. Like, I did better than probably anybody in here. I took it more serious.
Yeah.
And I remember our professor, she kind of kept looking at me, and she put her hand on her chin, and she was shaking her head. Like, I couldn't tell if it was like that wasn't very good, or what that pensive look was on her face. So what happened was, you and I both worked at the barbecue restaurant. I'm literally working. Have you heard this story?
It's sounding
Yeah.
familiar.
So I'm working, and our manager Dave goes, "Hey Joe, you got a phone call in my like you can take it in my office if you want." And I'm like, Pfft. It was like in the middle of the night. It was like 7, 8 o'clock. So I go in the office, and I got grease all over me, and she was like, "Hey Joe, this is so and so," because I want to reach out to her. I just don't remember her name. And I go, "Oh, hey!" Like it was so random. So that was before cell phones. So you knew she had to find my number,
Yeah.
call my house, and my parents had to say, "This is where he's at if you need to get a hold of him." So it's my theater professor calling me at this restaurant.
That's crazy.
In the middle of my shift. She goes, "I just want to let you know that," she goes, "you have this thing about you. The way you did that scene, I have not stopped thinking about it." She goes, "You were so natural." She goes, "It wasn't forced. You could tell." She goes, "Obviously you had to memorize it, but you would have never guessed that."
Yeah.
And she goes, "I was so moved." And she goes, "I was almost to where I couldn't, I haven't been able to think about anything else for like the last day or two."
Wow.
She goes, it grabbed me. And she was saying all these things. I'm like, literally, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I could not believe she was telling me all this stuff. Like, I thought I did okay.
Yeah.
But she goes, "Have you ever thought about doing college plays?" And I go, "Well, I mean, of course, I've always had kind of that little side goal or whatever of acting or this and that." And I go, "I'll be honest with you, not really." I go, "I did that stuff in high school." I said, "But I'm in this fraternity. I'm kind of one of the higher positions in the fraternity. I'm pretty social in what I'm doing." And she goes, "I really think that you need to be in those." And she goes, "I'm involved in some of that stuff, the casting and such." And she goes, "And I would encourage you to do a Linklater voice class, like a voice."
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what that was. And of course I started researching it, and apparently that's like a big deal.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal enough for me when I read on it to be like, I can't believe she was wanting me to do that.
Yeah.
So I guess Linklater is this like renowned acting voice person or coach or whatever. So she's like trying to like nudge me to do that just because of a little 5-minute scene I did in a theater 101 course.
Wow. Yeah.
And I never forgot that. I wish I could remember her name. I hate that I can't remember it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and of course I looked on the staff director. I think she's long gone by now. But
Yeah.
it's so cool to have those moments where somebody sees something in you that you didn't really think about. You know,
Yeah.
it's like second nature for you to do something and to the best of your ability, and for them to recognize it in such a strange,
You may
random
have
way.
missed your calling.
I don't know. But
May have missed your
yeah,
calling.
she said
then.
it was. Yeah,
Well, okay. I ultimately got into teaching in a very weird way.
you did. It was very unorthodox.
It was. So I had my journalism degree. I was wanting to get into law school, so I took the LSAT. I was waiting tables with you.
Mm-hmm.
I did not get into... I didn't try any other schools but U of L and didn't get in. And I had been told by a couple of former, law students there, as long as you get, this score on your LSAT, you should be fine. But don't be discouraged if you don't get in the first try. It's really hard. So I was disappointed, but I was motivated to try the next year. Only this time, I got myself an apartment right off Zorn Avenue in Louisville, hoping that my new address would help bump up my chance. Because we're just across the river,
Right.
but, in-state, out-of-state. I just set up residence in Louisville. Maybe I'll have a better shot.
We're building a strategy.
Yeah, so I was also helping a friend of mine teach, or not teach, but I was the assistant cheer coach at the high school that Dad taught at, that we went to. I walked in one day because I had to make copies of cheer schedule. In the middle of the day, it's during passing time, and Dad's in the hallway, swinging his imaginary golf swing, right?
As he
His
does.
golf-
As he does.
Students were passing, and he said, and he took me aside, got real quiet. You ever thought about teaching? And I was like, no. He said, you ever thought about teaching theater? And I was like, yeah, Dad, that'd be amazing, but you gotta have a degree for that. I'm like, wake up, dude. What? And he was like, well, they have these things called an emergency license. So all you really need is a bachelor's degree, and there's a program you can be part
go
of.
through the steps.
I had never heard of such a thing. I didn't know that a school system could be in trouble and not be able to fill positions, and you just,
right.
you have a bachelor's degree. Come
Right.
on, we need somebody, and you can
You figured the supply was higher than the demand.
exactly.
Right.
So he said, "Why don't you head to the office and talk to Mike, principal?" And so, long story short, I was hired 2 weeks before school started. This was
I remember.
never.
Yeah, I remember.
It was never a dream of mine to be a teacher. I felt like being a theater teacher at the school where you and I went and did plays was a dream out of nowhere come true. I think I was the 7th person who was offered the job because I didn't have the credentials, right? But everybody in front of me turned it down. I was too stupid to turn it down.
That's crazy.
Well, our school system just didn't pay very much at all.
True, but still, like, what are the odds of 6 people turning? You know what I mean?
I mean, I could be wrong on the number, but at the time, I remember being told it was
talk
quite
about
a few.
Everything happens for a reason. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so we were on vacation, a family vacation, when I got the call. And it was just like one day I was a waitress, and the next day I was a theater teacher. Damn, dude, it was like
I remember.
It was like Shark Week without the cage. I had no idea what I was doing. And the first year it was a disaster.
I know.
It wasn't a disaster, but it was.
Yeah, I remember thinking, man, she's so cool. She gets to do that. Like, you got that opportunity out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just that you got to have, teach these fun classes, but you also got to put on these plays. Well, God, I mean, it was night and day. I had 5 different preps. I had to teach Theater 1, Theater 2, musical theater, and media. So I had 4 preps. Mm-hmm. And so that's like 4 different lesson plans. Plus you get a production like in the fall, in spring, and no experience outside of my own high school experience, which at the time I was kicking myself because, you just audition, but you're not interested in crew. You're not interested in backstage, any of that. And I'm kicking myself going, why didn't I take more of an interest in the behind the scenes so I'd know what the fuck I'm doing? But I had incredible students who just became sort of my little flying monkeys. Like
your little minions.
Yeah, who were just awesome and trustworthy. And I could name them right now, but I won't. But I couldn't have done it without them. And who ran lights for me and just did all that shit. And the emergency license process, basically what I needed didn't exist. They have emergency license programs at IUS and other colleges for people who've been in the real world with the real job, who can become a teacher. If you just have to take a couple more credits, pass the test, blah, blah, blah. They didn't have one for theater.
Tell me they didn't create a whole track.
They did.
Oh, my Lord.
They did, because Jane Reel. Jane Reel is famous in IUS lore because she was such an incredible advisor and very creative and very open and very willing to make things work for someone. And she knew the situation. I was like, look, I'm not going to teach for 3 years and then be forced to student teach somewhere else. Okay? I'm doing this full time. How can I take the credits I already have and get this done in 3 years so that at the end of this 3 years, I'll have my teaching degree in theater, speech, journalism, communication.
Yep.
She made it happen. But that meant a full-time job, 4 different lesson plans, full-time theater production, rehearsals every day, and night classes. I don't know how I did it.
Nobody else could have done it, though. I know you well enough personally. Nobody else could have done that. Maybe that's why people turned it down. One year I remember having a tech class that had 40 extra lab hours. So I'm doing all this shit, and I had to I would leave school on Tuesdays and Thursdays wearing my tool belt so that I could literally just hop out of my car and go right to class and not be late. And I had to spend every Saturday, I had to knock my hours out before the fall production. And so it was just me and the professor, who was cool as hell. And I loved him so much, and he taught me so much. And all the other students were waiting until the last minute to fulfill their 40 hours of lab. I was there every Saturday morning at 8 a.m.
And I did it in like 2 months. And he taught me how to use a drill. I mean, I made my own rocking chair, just stuff like that.
Right.
I was somehow juggling all of that, and it was nuts. And then just as I finished, and I was so proud of myself, because the first year was painful. The second year I was better. The third year you wouldn't recognize me as a teacher. I mean, you just learn what works and what doesn't work. And I'm telling you, none of the classes that I took during this period taught me shit,
Yep.
about teaching.
I believe it.
You just have to learn through trial and error, honestly. By the end of this 3 years, I have my certification. I'm pumped. I did it. Somehow, I did it. And my principal comes to me that same week, sits in my office and says, "What do you think about teaching English?"
So you had to go back and get more?
Well, what I didn't know, we had 2 English teachers, legendary English teachers, retiring, not coming back the next year. We had a theater teacher who was teaching English at the middle school right across the parking lot. So Mike was in a bind. Mike had to fill these English positions. And he thought, what if I bring this theater guy over to us? They can share the theater department and share the English responsibilities together. I didn't know he had already done it. I wasn't comfortable with it. But I quickly warmed to the idea because I knew the guy. We went to school together. We were in theater together. I thought, maybe this will be great. But I later found out he had already made those decisions without really asking me first and kind of took it out from under me after I'd worked so hard. But all it really took was one more summer to get my English certification. So it wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
it wasn't that bad. And an incredible mentor, one of the English teachers who was retiring, who listeners who know us and where we went to school know exactly who I'm talking about. Tight skirts, clippity clop.
Oh, yeah.
Legendary. She said to me, "In my opinion, you should go to Mr. Crabtree today and tell him you'll take all the English. Take it all. And tell him you'll want my room."
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And thank God.
Oh, that's cool.
Because I was married by then. Oh, I got married in the midst of all this 3-year nonsense. Chaos, I'll call it. Not nonsense. Chaos. Beautiful chaos, by the way. And we were going to try to have a baby, and I thought, I can't do theater. And by that point, I'd had several conversations with the other guy, and I knew that we were not creatively compatible. Casting, you name it, like just different visions. Like, not a bad thing, but maybe it was time for me to say, what kind of lifestyle do I want? So after all that hard work, I switched to English, and I spent the rest of my career there. Well, halfway through my 17th year, I got a job offer to do what I do now. That was 8 years ago.
Okay. We'll put a pin in that one. Yeah. So my first career out of college was, I think most people have heard of it. It's called University of Phoenix online school. And that was really where, it was about the time where it was like starting to gain popularity on commercials and things of that nature. Well, I'm not going to say as luck would have it because I hated it, but they moved, they had campuses all over the country, right? It wasn't just in Phoenix. So they had like little satellite campuses. So they had the online part of it, and then they had like physical campuses where people could go one night a week to go to school. So they opened a campus in Louisville, and I was just on like monster.com or careers, whatever. Yeah, Monster. And I got an interview, and because they were just starting that campus, they had several positions open, and it said enrollment counselor. But as I found out, it was a pretty like hardcore, cutthroat sales type of job where you were responsible for getting butts and seats every month.
Ick.
And so, ick. And so, they would get like leads. I'm like, this is supposed to be an adult education environment where people should be walking in the door to enroll for classes, and I'm having to go
Cold call people.
Basically. Oh, it gets worse.
Have you ever wanted to extend your education?
So people go online and accidentally hit that they're interested in getting more information, and then we get those leads, and then we have to cold call them.
Ugh.
So I had call sheets that had like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, how many calls per day. So we had to, because it was a numbers game. It was like you have to make 500 calls a week to get this many appointments to get this many people to enroll. I hated it. Hated it.
God, that's like 8 hours of cringe a day.
Absolutely. So you got to imagine, I was like, I mean, people had to like force me into the building every day. Like, now listen, I was.
Oh my God, it's like Jim when Dwight's manager.
Yeah.
Just like, come on.
Now, make no mistake, I was pretty good at it, and I could talk to people on the phone. But it was just like a telemarketer type thing where you get people that you'd say 5 or 6 words and they'd hang up on you, or they'd call you an MF-er.
It makes you hate people.
Oh, I hated it. But I was like, if it's a numbers game, I just got to make sure I call this many. And we had to track our numbers each week and give it to our boss. And our boss had this like separate headset where he could hear our phone calls.
Ick.
But we knew that. It was like a training thing.
Yeah.
And then if I had a bad call or not as good a call as I should have had, as soon as I hung up with the person I was talking to, he would call me back, hey, you want to come to my office? Let's talk about that call. I'm like,
oh my
God. I mean, it was like commission type stuff. I mean, I take that back. I had a base salary, but I also had like commission type stuff. So I didn't like that. And if you weren't doing well or hitting your numbers, you had to hit numbers. Like every month you had to get so many applications. It was like 10 a month or something like that. If you didn't do that, then you had to get retrained. You had to sit in a separate room.
Ick.
I didn't have to do that very much, maybe like once. But it taught me a lot, certainly. I just hated the drive. It was way out on Lynn Station Road and off Hurstbourne. So I was always in traffic. I didn't get home till like 7 o'clock. It was just stressful. That was my first job, like career job. Like
big boy job.
Where I got like a salary and you get my first paycheck. I was like, oh, wow, I'm rich. And I think I started out like 28 grand a year or something silly. So I was like, I can buy anything. I remember thinking that. But when you go from $8.25 an hour to that, it's a big life change. But, I was having kids at the time, like just having kids. And so that was my first like real job out of college. Certainly I knew that's not what I was going to do. And I had been promoted like the first 6 months or so. I got promoted to a different role there. So I was doing well enough to get recognized, but I hated it. So it was like the first time I remember thinking, I kind of know what Dad felt like now, where he was in that commission insurance job that he hated. Obviously I wasn't as high up as he was, or I wasn't doing it for as long, but I could appreciate what he was going through. His struggle mentally. So I hated it. I did meet some cool people that I still keep in contact with, so that really wasn't an issue. But like I said, it was cutthroat. So if you didn't meet goals and the campus was struggling to get people in the door, there were some team-wide meetings where our boss just came out, and he relocated from Portland, Oregon. So he moved his wife to Louisville for this campus, and he actually made a comment in one team meeting because we were struggling for a few months straight. He said, "Listen, if it's against me or you when it comes to like paying for my mortgage, I'm going to choose paying for my mortgage."
Yeah.
And he made that comment, and I remember thinking, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
That doesn't put you in a good headspace. So I started actively looking, but that was my first real paycheck out of college.
Well, I said that my first year of teaching was a disaster, and you would not have recognized me by the end of my teaching career. I worked incredibly, incredibly hard to become better each year than I was the year before. And I had created a system thanks to the students themselves, just trial and error, seeing what works and what doesn't, and also having a few really strong mentors in the building, colleagues who helped shape what kind of teacher I was. And I got great advice, great guidance. There was a lot of wisdom being shared. And I'm not afraid to toot my own horn here, because this I know is true. I was a damn good teacher. And it wasn't that I was actively looking because I hated it, but my last year and a half of teaching was fraught with sickness. I was getting skin rashes. Once I got a yeast infection all over my skin, all over my body.
That sounds great.
Fortunately, it was in areas that clothes covered up. But when I disrobed for the doctor, she was Indian. She had this accent. I opened my robe and she went, oh dear, oh my goodness. Like it shocked her. It was all over my body. And she said, when when you're stressed, your defenses are down. And she's like, you have bacteria on your skin all the time, but your body fights it. Your body's not fighting it.
Oh, wow.
And I had yeast infection all over my
It was like when Bella had a vampire baby and she took off her robe and they were playing the Lion and Lamb song.
That's what I looked like, except it was all red.
Yikes.
Yeah. I had another time I had a skin rash all over. It looked like scabies, but it wasn't scabies. And I went to various doctors who could never diagnose it. I was getting panic attacks, just sick. Dreading it, dreading every day. And it wasn't because I didn't like teaching. I loved teaching, but on one hand, I knew that I was sacrificing a life of my own, preparing these kids for life. And when Josh came into my life, I was no longer willing to do that because I was ready to live again. Because I had lived 10 years as a single mom and devoted 100% of my life and heart and soul to that job. Because I wasn't teaching math here. I had a stack of essays.
It was intense.
The grading was a beast on its own. If you want to do it right, you can't just put a check like some teachers do.
It's not like you were preparing to do line dancing in PE.
Yeah.
No offense, PE teachers.
Well, right. And it's not like I couldn't just give true, false.
Right.
And also, I was teaching mass media. And that's a whole other episode, dude. I mean, I've talked about the success I had just in that class. That was a whole department that I was running. I feel so blessed to have stumbled accidentally, by chance, into that profession. I have such amazing memories from it all. I was incredibly invested, at times way too invested. But the administrative part, more and more, sucked the joy out of the air.
Yeah, for sure.
And they just made it harder and harder for us to do our jobs well. So I was becoming very disillusioned by it all and thinking, the conversation that's going on locally and nationally about teaching does not match my everyday experience. I'm killing myself. I'm getting sick. And the conversation is teachers are the problem. And I just couldn't reconcile the two. And so I was very, very unhappy.
Yeah, I get that.
But loved my time, my class, my kids, my subject matter. That was always kick-ass. Always fun. The rest of it was shit after a while. So
I believe that when you say it, because I remember talking to you about stuff, and you could see the joy of certain things that you had to do. Like
it was...
You can see you got a lot of satisfaction in some of that.
Oh, I could never put that into words.
Yeah.
The rich experiences.
Yeah, and
life-changing.
And you impacted a lot of kids' lives because I've heard it. I've heard people talk about Miss Kaufman, whatever. Yeah. So I've heard that. So you clearly were like dad in that sense.
Yeah, and I got to tell. We were the only two teachers in the building who had seniors only. And we were the senior class sponsors. We went on the senior trip together every year. Yeah. We planned all the senior events.
Oh, that alone had to be...
That alone was worth sticking around for.
Oh, for sure. I would be the same way.
And so I think a lot of my thunder was... The wind was knocked out of my sail when Dad retired.
Gotcha.
Things weren't the same for me.
But that's fair.
But I want to try to wrap up here by talking about how fortunate we've been able to be in changing careers.
Yeah, like where are you now?
I mean, I work at home for the last 8 years. My salary was basically cut in half, but at that point in my life, I had this beautiful man at home saying, "You do what you got to do, and we'll be okay." And without him, I couldn't have done it. I mean, if it were still just me and Mal, I'd still be teaching right now. But you do need that support system. But now I work from home, writing copy for a marketing company, and it's not glamorous and it's not sexy. But now at our age, it's more about the work-life balance. It's not about, you know, it's about not what I do, but how I live.
Yeah.
And I wish that our country, our culture was better at preparing kids for that goal. Like, not asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? But how do you want to live when you grow up? And what are you willing to do? Because maybe you don't need a 4-year degree and that job and that title and that status and that big building. Maybe you can do something like this over here and be totally fine and be able to live the life that you want. And that,
like, have it catered to your life goal.
that needs to be the conversation.
I agree with that.
Or at least part of the conversation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because otherwise, weren't we just raised to think and stress and worry about picking the right job that we're going to go to until we die?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Instead of, what kind of life do you want? And let's figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah, it was like it was slammed over our head. Work your ass off to get this piece of paper, to grab your briefcase and walk miserably into your job and clock in and clock out. Like, it was like, and be happy doing it because you're going to get
100%.
Yeah, it's just.
And so
I can't even, like, now that we're talking through it, I can't even believe that was the
I know the message.
message.
And so
That's the pitch.
That's the pitch they sell, and I'm glad things are changing, and I think the internet has so much to do with that.
100%.
Because you can really branch out on your own, and you don't need to get your foot in the door. You can create the door.
Yeah, you can thrive in your own way.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I just feel like we're at an age where I'm realizing. Well, you said here at the beginning, you gave a stat that said the average person switches careers 3 or 4 times. That is reassuring to me, because it wasn't until I sat down to think about the subject that I realized, damn, Mom and Dad did the same thing. Damn, Joe and I did the same thing. And then you said that stat, and I know plenty of friends our age who've made drastic changes. And I feel like we are, we are not the exception.
Right.
The person who knows from 6th grade on what they want to do when they grow up and sticks it out and does it and then retires, that's the exception, not the rule. But we were sold that was the rule.
Right.
And I think that it's never, I just want to encourage anybody out there, it's never too late to go after the life you want to live. And if your job is keeping you from that life, like I loved teaching with all my heart, but it wasn't allowing me to be present at home.
Right. And you figured out that was more important.
Absolutely. I finally had an opportunity for love and marriage again, and family and vacations together and everything I had missed for the last 10 years. And I was not about to sacrifice anything for that.
Yeah, that's cool. I applaud you for that.
Well, I hope it encourages people to, have the courage. If you're, if you feel like you're still searching, still trying to answer that question, what do I want to be?
See, we always say at the end of our podcast, like, it's from everything that we say, we try to make it from like a Gen Xer's perspective. So everybody's getting a fresh look into a Gen Xer's perspective on career changes and.
Well, I know we're not alone.
No, for sure.
I know we're not alone.
But I think your advice is really sound. I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, for me, my story's pretty simple. It was, I did that job that I didn't really care for, but it was paying bills.
Yeah.
And I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm doing well, whatever, but it's too stressful and it's not worth the stress. I applied for a local company that's headquartered in Louisville that's pretty reputable. And I thought, well, that seems pretty secure. So I had no other aspirations other than I just need to get out of here. And as long as it's a little bit of a bump and it's with a good, strong company, I was all about the strong brand. I felt like there would be some security in that.
Well, it's like searching for a home in an established neighborhood.
Yeah. So I apply for this something education type of.
Just like entry level.
Yeah, but it said education, the title. It was like provider education. I thought, oh, I can like piggyback off what I'm doing here. and I got a call that next week or whatever for an interview. I go into interview, and I know I kill it. These two people that interviewed me were fantastic. I still texted them to this day. And once I found out, because I'm going in thinking I'm going against one or two other people for this job, I asked them how many people they're hiring for this role, and they said 10 to 12. I was like, I got it. I know I did. Because we were by the time I got up off the elevator to go to my interview with these people, we were already talking about movies.
Oh, cool.
And
yeah, you just connected.
Ronald Reagan or some shit like that. So, I mean, we had connected really quickly. I get a call like 2 days later. I get the offer. It's a few grand more than what I was making. I was like, oh, I'm out. And that started a 21-year career in the healthcare. I'll call it like healthcare administration / leadership.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, from that job, you basically took that guy's advice from college, and you've been selling yourself ever since.
Yep.
And you just you stumbled into this field that you never would have considered.
Never thought about it, not once.
That you probably didn't even know was a thing.
Nope, not once.
And just by simply selling yourself and connecting with people and using each opportunity as a stepping stone, you've climbed a ladder to the point where now you are 24/7, work from home, big money. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate, and I liked it enough because there was enough opportunity. There was enough changes in the industry that were going on that I felt like it was always...
There's room to grow.
It's fresh and new, room to grow. It was a big corporation, so there was a ton of opportunity locally. I got to travel a lot. I was traveling pretty much everywhere in the United States, and I even got to go to Canada for one trip because we were in Buffalo. So anyway, I'm fortunate. I've held leadership positions in that industry pretty much from the first 2 or 3 years I was in it on.
Yeah.
And I've been with a couple different companies since that first one. And it's like I'm to the point where I'm not really like applying for jobs. I'm getting recruited for jobs.
Right.
And that's been, that's been pretty neat.
Pretty neat.
Like I couldn't even tell you where my resume is right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know where I have it saved.
I was talking to somebody recently, and I was like, yeah, I don't remember the last time he like interviewed for a job. People have come to him and recruited him.
Yeah,
like
so
people have hunted him down.
Yeah, so I've been pretty lucky with that. But all I'm trying to do is like going all the way back to the first points we made about mom and dad. I'm just trying to do the right things. And I feel like if I'm doing the right things, I'm making good decisions, I'm being responsible and accountable, I'm meeting the right people and purposely trying to meet the right people, then something good has to happen from it. And so that's kind of any advice I could give somebody is don't be afraid to get in front of the right people, okay? Don't be afraid to build relationships. Don't be afraid to attach your name to something important. Like just a quick example is if like there's a big company project or a big company initiative, because these big companies will say, hey, top 5 company initiatives are X, Y, Z, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Figure out a way to get attached to that initiative, whether it's a project or a team. Don't be afraid to throw yourself out there, okay? Make some mistakes along the way. And as long as you're, doing right in that respect and you're meeting the right people and networking, and it usually works out for the most part. And you're not a complete bonehead. So anyway, I just try to, use a mixture of personality, responsibility, networking, leadership kind of instincts that I had. And I was just on the fast track. It was like every 2.5 years I was getting promoted in that same company.
All from general studies.
So
crazy.
I even rode the corporate jet.
I remember you telling me.
That was really cool.
I remember that.
So yeah,
story.
so that's been my journey. Is I'm still in it. I'm still in that same industry, making big time decisions for people in these different companies that I'm in. So that's been pretty rewarding. And now
and that's crazy because I feel like I've gone the opposite direction. Like your trajectory is up in terms of like meaning and value and importance attached to your job. Like I had to struggle with what I have. I mean, I have a relationship with God. I have love in my life.
Yeah.
It's not like my life was without purpose or meaning.
Sure.
But when you do something that you feel has so much value to work, you're writing copy for a marketing company for peanuts, you're like, you do ask yourself, it's hard to feel like you don't matter anymore. However, the trade-off has been worth it.
Yeah.
Because when I'm home, I'm home.
No, I love that. I love that you're there mentally too.
Yeah.
I know we're short on time, but I will finish with this. I was chasing titles and money when I was younger because I was basically, I had to.
Yeah.
I had a young family. I had a new house. So I had motivations.
Your bills.
But as I got older, And people can say, well, it's easy because you got to a point where you're successful, you're making money, whatever. I get that, but I truly take more stock in having a work-life balance, being able to just have relationships with people outside of work and just like fostering those relationships. Like I care more about experiences and moments and things like that than I do working my complete tail off for no satisfaction for somebody else, because I can be replaced tomorrow.
Yeah.
So have I done well? Sure. But I care more about now at this age being happy outside of work than I do anything that I do in work.
Exactly.
So
that's why I was.
So I'm not trying to chase titles. If I retire in 15, 20 years with the same title I have right now, I'm okay with that.
Same.
I do not care.
Same.
I want to experience life outside of that.
Yeah.
So.
Learned once again more about you.
Let's retire tomorrow.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's go to the villages. Ride golf carts around the villages.
I'm there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for listening to another piece of the Gen X experience we're saving. You'd think something called a career path would be a lot easier to find. If you're still searching, at least now you know you're not alone, as our own crazy journeys have now been immortalized in the annals of history. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the Best of Gen X wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Joe, always a pleasure.
Duh.